Welcome to Aging Insight with your host, John Ross and Lisa Scholmeyer. This program is made possible by
Welcome to another edition of Aging Insight. I'm your host, John Ross, here with my co-host and business partner, Lisa Scholmeyer, and she and I are elder law attorneys specializing in elder law needs, which is basically a combination of lots of little different pieces of the law that we all put together in order to accomplish the needs of a particular type of person. That's the kind of person who would like to avoid institutionalized care as they get older. They would like to avoid becoming a burden on their friends and family, and they would like to protect and preserve their lifetime's worth of resources that they've accumulated so that they can have the best quality of life. And we know that you can accomplish those things if you have the knowledge to do so. And the only way you can get that knowledge is to reach out there into the community and find those places. And so one of those places is right here on Aging Insight.
Right. You know, and John, we visit with lots of retired folks, lots of people that are thinking about retirement. And then, you know, some of our folks, I think they've been retired almost as long as we've been working sometimes.
Yeah, there's a whole group out there. But, you know, particularly when we're talking about, for example, the baby boom generation. You know, in this country right now, we have 10,000 people, 10,000 that turn 65 every single day.
Yeah.
That's a bunch. And between now and I think 2030, the people who are over the age of 65 will outnumber Lisa and I 3-1. That's a lot of folks pushing up into those retirement years.
Sure. So, you know, and one of the biggest concerns of every retiree is, you know, am I going to run out of money to support myself, you know, in my retirement years? And that, you know, usually that's one of the biggest concerns. You know, health is a big concern, but most of the time, a lot of retirees, they may have pretty good health at that point in time. And so they're really looking about, they don't want to outlive their money.
That's right. And Lisa and I are not, we're not financial advisors. We don't sell stocks and bonds and things like that. But what we do is we interact with seniors on a day-to-day basis. We help with their families. And, you know, after doing that for 10 or 15 years, you can start seeing some trends. You can see the things that some people do early on in retirement that do end up stretching those dollars for a long time and improve the quality of life for a longer period of time.
Yeah. Well, John, and I guess I want to start first with the first thing that we see people just wait too long to do that impacts their financial situation through retirement is a lot of people wait too long to downsize their home and property situation. And so, you know, you and your spouse may have, you know, purchased a home, paid off your 30-year mortgage, you know, and so you're comfortable, you're content in your home, and that's where you raised your family, and it holds so many wonderful, pleasant memories. And a lot of folks, they almost anchor their security into that home rather than really thinking about the bigger picture. And so sometimes that home is just, it's too much home, too much house for the retiree's needs. And so, you know, what you don't need to be heating and cooling and maintaining and paying taxes on too large of a piece of property for your needs. The other thing that we see is if that home is getting up there in years, then there's going to be a lot of maintenance issues, a lot of repairs that can come up. And, you know, those kind of capital maintenance issues, you know, replacing a air conditioning system or redoing a roof, you know, a lot of times the older a home gets, the more likely you can have, you know, pipes and things deteriorate and you end up with leaks in the walls or whatever. You can have big repair issues on an older property. So we've had people, and once they spend money on those expensive repairs, they feel even more inclined to stay in the property to get their value of that repair back out. So, a house is a house.
That's right.
It's a place to live.
It's four
to keep
walls
you
and a
safe.
roof.
Right. So, think about downsizing earlier rather than later, because it's amazing the amount of funds that you can save when you do that.
Yeah, in fact, I was recently visiting a client in the Frisco, Texas area, and in the area she moved to be closer to her kids who live in the North Dallas area, but in this particular subdivision, all of the houses are basically brand new or pretty close to brand new, 2 or 3 years old. And in her particular subdivision, all of the houses, you have to be over 55 in order to purchase a house in that neighborhood. They're all smaller houses with smaller lawns. They're much easier to maintain. Everything is new. It's built well, and that's lowering their costs quite a bit. But there's also a piece that comes with that, because you know what they don't have? They don't have teenagers from next door driving in front of their house.
Right.
And they don't have, they don't have some of the other things that go with more of a blended neighborhood. And so there are some neighborhoods that are particularly designed for that downsized move. But that house is yes, it's something that you've put a lot of money into over the years, and yes, you've created an asset. But that asset is not working for you any longer, and now it's going to start costing you money. So shrink that down to get what you need, and that will save you money over the long term. Now, in the process of doing all of that, this is my mother right here. She'll say, "Well, I can't move into that small place because I got too much stuff."
That's right. There's not enough room for my stuff. My furniture's big.
Yeah, I got too much stuff.
I got big furniture.
That's right.
That place.
Well, we're going to talk about, when we're talking about ways to save a few bucks, maybe getting rid of some of that stuff might be one of those. So we're going to talk about that when we get back from this break. So stick around, and we'll be right back.
I'm so glad we found the Wadley Senior Clinic. Their team specializes in caring for older adults, and their doctors listen and work with me to keep me healthy and independent. With monthly educational programs, x-ray and lab, and state-of-the-art exam rooms, I get expert care and understanding about what I'm going through. Best yet, they're easy to get to right off the interstate at Jefferson. See what Wadley Senior Clinic could do for you. Wadley Senior Clinic, where healthy relationships begin.
Hi there, I'm Larry Sims. It's been my privilege for the past several years to be a volunteer board member of Hospice of Texarkana, and there I'm able to represent community members like you. We continually customize our end-of-life care to better meet the needs of our community. As an example, our medical director and nurse practitioner still make visits to homes and facilities. Call today to learn more about the help we can give your family. Hospice of Texarkana, the nonprofit hospice established in 1985 for the community, by the community.
Welcome back to Aging Insight. I'm Lisa Scholmeyer here with John Ross, and today we're talking about ways to stretch your dollars in retirement. So as you start, if you're one of our viewers who is looking forward to retirement someday, then this information could be particularly helpful for you. But really, any of our retirees, if you're worried about your money not lasting long enough, well then we've got some ideas for you to make it last a little bit longer. So
That's right.
First, we talked about a lot of folks, John, they just wait too long to downsize, and they throw away money that they could be keeping back to for their retirement years. They throw away money on maintaining more overhead, a larger household, larger, an older home, and just because it feels secure. I mean,
well, it's where you've lived for a long time, and
yeah.
maybe you've got some memories in it and things like that.
People don't like change.
And people don't like change, but it's one of those things, and you'll get all kinds of excuses. Well, where's everybody going to be when they come for Thanksgiving? Well, you know what? You can still have Thanksgiving in a small house. It's just that everybody's got to go stay at hotels tonight.
That's right.
Which, frankly, is probably better for your sanity anyway. There's lots of other ways, but all of that money that's going down the drain in repairs on an old house, on property taxes, on too big a house, on homeowners insurance, on too big a house, you got to get rid of those things, and sooner rather than later if you're looking to stretch those dollars. As you're downsizing, you've got to start looking at all these things. The most common thing that we hear is, well, I've got too much stuff. Where am I going to put all my stuff? Well, oftentimes the quote stuff you're talking about is stuff that you haven't even touched or used or looked at for a long time. And so, people are familiar with having, for example, estate sales after somebody dies, but you can just as easily sell off some of those sort of things or donate them to charity. Either way, you're going to create a little bit of cash, or you're going to create some tax deductions, both of which can help stretch that stuff out. Plus, as you get to where you start downsizing to just the things that you need in order to get through your day-to-day life, that also saves money in kind of other ways. For example, if I don't have 2 empty bedrooms full of furniture, well, then I'm not having to clean those. I'm not having to maintain those. So the cost of just buying furniture polish is going to go down. But if especially if you get older and maybe you can't maintain the home like you used to, and you start bringing in outside caregivers or outside home cleaners, most home cleaning services charge per room.
That's true.
Fewer rooms you got, cheaper that's going to be. So several things about downsizing.
Same with landscape work.
Same with landscape work.
Well, another idea to try to stretch out those dollars is to take a look at your savings and where your savings is resting right now. And many seniors, they get very concerned. They want to make sure their savings is secure and is not at risk of decreasing due to changes in the market or investment circumstances. But so we do see a lot of seniors that they plow lots of savings into things like a CD at the bank.
Right, or just savings accounts.
Or savings accounts, or they're using their checking account as essentially a savings account because they've just got a bunch in there.
Yeah, my own grandfather had way too much money that he kept in just his regular checking account. Now, the first thing to consider in all of this, your investment structure should change when you hit retirement, or up until that point. When you're younger years, you want to be investing in growth. You want to be putting your money in stocks and things that are going to grow at a faster rate. And those do come with risk. The market will go up, it will go down. But because you're younger and you're investing for the long term, you can absorb those ups and downs. Just because the stock market goes down a whole bunch one day, it goes back up in a couple of more days or another year or 2 years or whatever it is. But over the long term, your money grows at a much faster rate. However, when you get into those senior years, that one fear about losing everything in a stock market crash, that is reality. You cannot absorb a 2 or 3 year decline in the stock market. So you do need to shift your investments. But pulling those investments and putting them in something like, again, Lisa, people will say, well, this CD is safe.
Right, I know the money's going to be there.
I know the money's going to be there. The problem is, though, money is worth less every single day than what it was the day before.
Sure.
This is what we call inflation. Anybody who can remember going to a movie 20 years ago compared to what it costs to go to a movie today knows what inflation is. The dollar that you paid to that movie then compared to the dollar that you paid now is just not the same thing. And that CD sitting at the bank is earning less interest than what it's losing in inflation.
Right. So when you look at that statement and you see that you have $50,000 in that CD and your last statement showed that you had $50,000 in that CD, what it's not showing you is the decrease in the purchasing power of that same $50,000. You know, John, it'd be great if they would put that on the statement. You know,
That's
when you put your money in, it was worth $50,000, but you know that was 3 years ago, and now your $50,000 really would only purchase, you know, $48,000 worth of services and goods.
That's right.
That'd be a great thing. But so what you need to really think about is safety, but also you need to think about places to put your money that will at least keep up with inflation, so you are maintaining your position.
That's right. And so now you're talking about things like maybe municipal bonds or corporate bonds that are from well-known companies like Walmart, for example, or other things like that. These are going to pay a higher interest rate than your bank savings account or your bank CD, and yet are still relatively safe investments. Certain types of stock, the value of the stock doesn't go up or down very much because it's a well-established company, and yet that stock produces dividends at a rate far greater than anything you could get at a bank. There are certain types of annuities. These are insurance contracts where they promise a certain rate of return, much like a CD does.
Right, except for that rate of return is typically much larger.
It's typically higher than you'll see with your typical CD or savings account. So you do want to change the way you invest, but don't go from one extreme to the other. Don't invest, you know, when you're young and you've got where you can absorb that risk and then say, oh geez, I've hit 65, I need to put everything in coffee cans and bury it in the backyard. It doesn't seem like it, but the reality is you're losing money. And the simplest way to think of it is, you know, when my mother went to the movies as a kid, she paid 50 cents. Now let's say she took that 50 cents and put it in a savings account when she was 16 years old. Do you think she could today go to that same bank and pull out enough money to go to the movies?
Probably not.
Probably not, because you probably only got about $2 in there now. And $2 not going to get you into the movies. So her investment in that savings account just doesn't grow fast enough. And that's the same thing with you. So, you know, if you're worried about income and worried about stretching out those assets, putting them in things that don't grow is not the answer.
Right. So that's where a good investment advisor, someone you trust, you know, if you don't have one, you know, certainly ask for recommendations from family and friends, but, you know, check them out, you know, get references. You know, a lot of folks out there who prey on seniors, so, you know, get those recommendations, find out who's been in your community, who's going to continue to be in your community, and look for some advice in those places.
That's right. So we're going to take another break, so stick around and we're going to keep talking about ways to stretch those retirement dollars, but you got to wait until after this break. We'll be right back.
The Wadley Senior Clinic has been such a blessing for our family. Because they specialize in geriatric care, they take the time to really focus on Dad's needs. Their exam rooms are specially designed for seniors, and they offer lab and x-ray on site. With monthly educational programs on health and wellness of the mind and body, our healthcare questions get answered. Best of all, they accept Dad's Medicare benefits. See what the Wadley Senior Clinic can do for you. Wadley Senior Clinic, where healthy relationships begin.
Hi there, I'm Larry Sims. It's been my privilege for the past several years to be a volunteer board member of Hospice of Texarkana, and there I'm able to represent community members like you. We continually customize our end-of-life care to better meet the needs of our community. As an example, our medical director and nurse practitioners still make visits to homes and facilities. Call today to learn more about the help we can give your family. Hospice of Texarkana, the nonprofit hospice established in 1985 for the community, by the community.
Welcome back to Aging Insight, everybody. I'm your host, John Ross, here with Lisa Scholmeyer, and today we're talking about ways to stretch those retirement dollars. Probably the single biggest thing with retirement for many people, especially now that most companies no longer offer pensions,
Yes.
is the good old-fashioned Social Security.
Right.
And there's a couple of things. So with Social Security, there's right ways and wrong ways to do Social Security, but those are all going to be dependent on you personally. So for example, you can take early Social Security maybe at 62, but you can also wait until you're age 70, and the longer you wait, the more you get. That can, if you can wait, then maybe it's appropriate to continue to wait. Maybe it's appropriate to continue to work. We think about retirement, and oftentimes people think retirement, that means stopping work. But oftentimes, so often people will retire and then they find out they're bored out of their mind.
Right, and they go back to find something, then they go back to work.
Yeah, so there's nothing stopping you just because you're, quote, retired from going out there and finding you some employment. It's things that, you may not physically be able to sling tires at the tire factory any longer, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't stand behind the counter at the local gun store and talk to people about guns all day. You're essentially turning something that's a hobby into employment. Now, it may not be a lot of employment, but those extra dollars, they can stretch out.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Well, so that's one thing. People, obviously if you have health concerns and all, then that does often, force people into an early, a retirement situation when maybe they weren't quite planning on it that time. But, there's, so working a little or turning a hobby into a business these days with computers and as easy to operate as something such as Facebook, where you can take a picture of the crafts or whatever it is that you do and offer them for sale. That's a great way to bring in current income, so you can leave a little bit more of your savings untouched until later.
Yeah, one of our employees' spouses was a big hunter, and he particularly liked going out to hunt at night and using night vision optics, and what started out as a hobby has now become a full business where he sells night vision optics. And these are the kind of things that you can continue to do in retirement. And if you're over the age of 65, these things are not going to affect your Social Security. These are not the kind of things that are going to cause you to lose the Social Security. You're going to be able to get both of these. Keep your Social Security and make a little bit extra money. Now, if you're below that, yeah, it does affect Social Security. But once you get to full retirement age, you can retire and draw the Social Security and yet still do some of these things and get the best of both worlds. So there are some options out there.
Right.
Of course, that also, when you're looking at those sort of things, I mentioned at the first of the program, I mentioned this lady that lives in Frisco, Texas. Now, she's not from Frisco, Texas. She's from Texarkana, and this is where she's lived. But she has moved to a different location. Now, I don't necessarily recommend you follow your kids around the nation.
Right.
Kids have a tendency to be mobile, and they're particularly mobile in this day and age.
Right.
People don't just go to work for one corporation and stay there their whole careers. They jump around. People get transferred and move around. So I don't necessarily recommend you follow your kids. However, moving to jurisdictions, different states, different cities have different tax benefits for people. So, for example, some states have certain tax discounts for seniors. Arizona is one of them, for example. And of course, lots of people like to go to Arizona because the weather's nice. It's a little warm in the summer, but other than that, it's pretty nice. And so you can look around. On the other hand, there are other states, some up in the Northeast, like Connecticut and stuff, which are just outrageously expensive in terms of taxation. Illinois,
there are some states that will tax your pension in that state, even though you didn't earn the pension in that state.
Right, and just by moving there and taking that pension, they tax it.
So if you do choose to move, that is one thing to look in is to the tax burdens, because every dollar you have to pay to the tax man is one less dollar you have to keep in your savings.
That's right. Or if you really want to do it upright, you can move just completely out of the country. We've done a whole episode before on moving abroad, and you can actually practically double or triple your household income just by virtue of moving to some of the foreign jurisdictions where the cost of living is so cheap that your Social Security has the effect of which has essentially doubled or tripled.
Well, and you know, John, we're about to come to the end of the episode, but I like the way it kind of has come full circle, because you know, if you listen to our first piece of advice, which is don't wait too long to downsize, then as you think about retirement, if you go ahead and downsize, you might be in a position to be mobile.
That's right.
To where you can, maybe in younger retirement years, maybe you do spend a few years living overseas, or you know, in a foreign jurisdiction or in a lesser tax jurisdiction. And then as you get even older with health concerns, then maybe you move back closer to your hometown or the kids or whatever that is. But during those years that you were living abroad, well, you've saved a lot of your tax retirement dollars to where that you've got them
That's
for
right.
your later years.
And that, frankly, is probably the most important part of all of this, which is the one thing I really don't want you to do is let the fear of running out of money limit your quality of life. You know, there's no reason why you have to pass anything on to anybody. Use it, enjoy it. There's actually some statistical proof out there that the people that leave no inheritance leave the best legacy. And you know, the happiest families and things like that. So use your own assets, get good information on how you're going to do these things, and you can get that information by watching our show. You can also listen to our radio show, which is on 98.7, and that's every Saturday at noon. And you can also pick up a copy of our Aging Insight magazine at your local doctor's office or hospital waiting room, or pick one up from our offices. Otherwise, we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us for this week's Aging Insight program with John Ross and Lisa Scholmeyer. This program is made possible by